What's going on, guys? Austin Zaback here with another YouTube video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the 3 biggest real estate investing lessons, mistakes that I've made. And listen, if you're brand new to my channel, I've wholesaled about 1,500 houses in the last 7 years. I'm a real estate agent, and I've represented about 150 clients in the buy or the sell of real estate. We've flipped a ton of properties. We actually own multiple rental properties now, and we're working on currently buying some short-term Airbnb properties. And over the course of that time, I've obviously made a lot of mistakes, okay? Anytime you're doing anything big in life, I feel like we tend to make mistakes, okay? So naturally, I've made a lot of them. And if you're brand new to real estate investing, or heck, maybe you've been a real estate investor for a year or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, this will still be a very helpful video for you to watch till the very end, because I can promise you some of the mistakes that I've made, you can try to avoid altogether so you don't waste your time, energy, or money. Because the reality of it is, you want to become a phenomenal real estate investor. I mean, I get it, right? We live in a day and an age where people are all over the place. You have people that are investing into Forex, into cryptocurrency, into Walmart automation, into Amazon automation, e-commerce, and the stock market, right? The S&P 500, they're day trading, whatever it might be, okay? We live in a day and an age, especially if you're below the age probably of like 35 or maybe even 30, everybody's on Instagram, right? You're on TikTok, you're on YouTube, and you're looking at every freaking investment strategy in the world. But I can promise you this, learning real estate investing at whatever age you are right now, and really mastering kind of the art of real estate investing, even if it isn't going to be your full-time thing, will definitely be very beneficial for you. Because let's just go ahead and face it for a minute, 90% of the world's millionaires and billionaires actually created their wealth through real estate. Now, obviously, this is just factoring in the self-made millionaires and billionaires, okay? So if you're born into a bunch of money or something like that, I guess it doesn't technically affect you, or it doesn't relate to you, okay? Now, for me personally, I wasn't born into any kind of money, okay? I'm a normal average kid. I grew up with my grandparents, and I actually had no real estate experience. So if you're watching the video and you have no real estate experience, then I totally understand, and I've been right where you're at, okay? So make sure you stay to the end of the video, because these are gonna be just a couple of very simple, but very, very important lessons that I've learned. So if you haven't already, just do me a quick favor and just go ahead and just smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. It would really help me out a ton. And also throughout the video, if you have any questions, definitely drop your questions down in the comments section below. We're going to be pumping out a lot more content just like this on this channel here very soon. So lesson number 1 that I've learned over the years is I wish I wouldn't have wholesaled so many houses. Now you're like, Austin, wait a minute, but you just said a minute ago that you've wholesaled like 1,500 houses in the last 8 years, okay? Now, that is true, okay? I have wholesaled a lot of real estate. And for those of you that are not familiar with the concept of wholesaling, it's very simple, okay? Wholesaling is essentially just going and getting a purchase contract with a seller and then turning around and basically flipping the contract to a cash buyer for a little bit of a profit or a little bit of arbitrage. This can be called an assignment, and it can also be called a double close, okay? But essentially, that is just the art, okay, or the process of wholesaling a piece of real estate. So again, wholesaling is just essentially where I take the purchase contract with the seller and I transfer my rights to the end buyer. So if I've done this as many times as I've done it, then how come one of my biggest mistakes is the fact that I've wholesaled too much? I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, Austin, what are you saying you've wholesaled too much? Okay, now, to be very clear, what I mean by this is very simple. Every time I wholesale a deal, I end up looking at the deal and I'm like, man, I probably should have bought that one, right? I probably should have bought that for myself. I should have added that to my portfolio, because, essentially every time you're wholesaling, you're just giving somebody else a phenomenal opportunity to potentially buy a house, okay, a piece of real estate below market value. The problem with that is yeah, it's great in theory. You're making a bunch of cash flow and the money is amazing, but it's very short-term money. And if you really think about it, it's kind of just like a very high-paying job, okay? You have to literally go in every day and you've got to find another seller and another buyer, and you're essentially just a matchmaker, right? You're a matchmaker and you do it every single day, day in and day out, which is obviously incredible, right? I mean, at the end of the day, who doesn't want to make potentially $10,000 every time they do that? I mean, if you could do that every day, you would obviously be making a killing. But again, when you really look at the long term of real estate investing, you're not acquiring any wealth, right? I mean, yeah, you're making a lot of money, but then what are you doing with that money, right? So if you're not doing anything smart with that money, then you're not acquiring any wealth. You're not building a portfolio. You're not doing really anything for your future. When you look at appreciation from like the 1960s to today, on average, real estate has appreciated just under like 5% a year, again, from like 1960-ish to today, and that is obviously just one benefit of owning real estate. Now, when you look from like 2019 or 2020 to today, it is astronomical if you've been paying any attention to what is going on in the real estate market. I don't know about you or where you live, but I live in Arizona. And from August of 2020 to August of 2021, the Phoenix metropolitan real estate market has appreciated 31.9%, which is just completely astronomical, okay? Now again, that's not necessarily healthy, that is not normal, that is a whole nother conversation could be had that we're in a bubble and blah, blah, blah. But what we can say for sure is that when you look at real estate over the course of a decade or 2 decades or 3 decades, you can guarantee pretty much that eventually the real estate will go up in value by an average of, give or take, somewhere between like 4 and 5%. Again, that's nationwide, obviously. So you're going to be able to get better appreciation in certain areas, and you're probably not going to get any appreciation in other areas. And there are obviously so many other benefits to owning real estate, okay? So that is just one benefit of owning real estate. Another huge benefit is that essentially you're moving a tenant in there and the tenant is paying down your mortgage for you. So, over the course of a 30-year mortgage, eventually you're going to own that piece of real estate, in theory, 100% outright, free and clear, and it was mostly paid for by your tenant, right? Because you only probably put anywhere from 3 to maybe 20% down, just depending on the type of financing that you got. So again, in a nutshell, one of the biggest mistakes that I made, and I've talked to a lot of people, I really hope that you stay watching the video, because I've seen a lot of people that have flipped an unbelievable amount of houses. I've seen the biggest flippers in the country. I've talked to these people personally, and they all have a similar regret, a similar mistake. They're all on the same page about wishing they would have bought more of the houses for themselves, right? To add to their own personal portfolio. So when you get into real estate, don't get so caught up in kind of the mundane day-to-day, making, 10 grand, 15 grand, 20 grand, 5 grand, right? And that's all fun, right? And there's definitely a time and a place for that, okay? But you want to make sure that you're building long-term wealth for your future and your future family. The second mistake that I wish I would have never made, or I wish I would have learned definitely a long time ago, is to never over-renovate a property, okay? I see a lot of people that go and they over-renovate a property. Now, let me just kind of explain what I mean here. So it doesn't matter what your exit strategy is, okay? It doesn't matter if you're going to buy the property as a buy and hold, like a long-term rental. It doesn't matter if it's going to be an Airbnb. It doesn't matter if you're going to just flip it and put it back on the market. It really doesn't matter what you're going to do with the property. You want to renovate the property for that particular area. You want to renovate it basically to the market standard in the area. So let me just kind of explain how you can know whether you're over renovating or under renovating even a property. The biggest thing you initially want to kind of look at is, are you renovating it to what you like, to what you think it should look like, to what you would like if you lived there? Are you putting in the countertops that you would like, the cabinets that you would like, the flooring that you would like? Or are you putting stuff into the property that the end buyer will like, that the tenant will like, that the market calls for, okay? So the reason, or basically the way that we figure this out is we have to look at other comparable properties in the neighborhood. Now, a comparable property is essentially just a similar like property, okay? So if you're looking at a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house in Mesa, Arizona, and it was built in 1965, et cetera, single story, no pool, whatever it might be, then we want to look at other properties that fit that same kind of criteria. Now, they can be plus minus, maybe 10% in total square footage. So it could be like maybe 100 or 200 square feet bigger, 100 or 200 square feet smaller. Okay, you can't be looking at like a 2-story compared to a 1-story though. You can't look at a 2000 build compared to a 1960 build. Okay, maybe at the most like 5 years in difference, okay? Ideally, you want to look at properties in the same community that were built by the same builder around the same time that have sold within the last 6 months, okay? So again, you're not always going to be able to find that, and it's okay if you can't, but that is the most ideal way to find comparable properties in the area. Now, there's obviously a bunch of different places that you can go to find that information, and the first place that probably comes to your mind is Zillow, okay? And Zillow's great. Zillow's actually probably a good place to start, right? You can look at pictures of other properties in the area, see what finishes they've done, and that will give you perspective as to exactly how much renovations you should do for your specific property. I see so many people that either over-renovate the heck out of a property. They spend way too much money, they go above and beyond, and there's been nobody in that area on any level that has even come close to that level of remodel. Therefore, they do not get that money back out of the property, right? An appraiser is not going to appraise that property for any more just because you over renovated it. It's just not how it works. A lot of people think that every dollar you get in, you'll get out $1.50 or $2 or whatever the case is. And while that might be true to a certain degree, it is definitely not true the moment you cross the line of over-renovating. So again, don't make this mistake, okay? Don't get emotional about it. Remember, you're in the real estate investing business to make what? To make money, to create wealth, to build a retirement plan for yourself and your future family, right? You want to renovate the property just the right amount, right? You don't want to under renovate it, okay? That's obviously a big problem too, and that's a whole nother conversation, right? And you don't want to over renovate it. And the third and final mistake that I want to go ahead and share with you is not buying the property at the right price, okay? You've probably heard before that you make money in the buy. So you probably heard a lot of people talk about making money in the buy, and what they mean by that is basically if you don't buy a deal right, it doesn't matter what you sell it for, it doesn't matter what your exit strategy is, it really doesn't matter how much you crush it, you're not going to probably make money on that particular deal. When you're looking at a deal, you want to understand how to analyze a deal properly, right? And this just takes time. I would say if you're watching the video and you are brand new to real estate investing, even if you've been in it for a while, I've personally probably looked at 100,000 pieces of real estate, in depth. I've looked at the numbers, I've comped the property. It's pretty insane how many deals I've actually looked at, right? And in doing so, I've gotten pretty good at analyzing a deal. Now, there's obviously multiple different ways to analyze a deal, okay? We're gonna analyze a deal differently depending on our exit strategy and depending on what we're gonna be doing with the deal, right? But at the end of the day, a deal is a deal at a certain number. My mentor told me a long time ago, he said, Austin, every piece of real estate will trade hands, okay? It'll go from this person to this person at some number, okay? Let me just say that again, right? At some number, a piece of real estate will go from this person to this person. The deed will actually transfer hands. Now, if it's a piece of dirt in the middle of Kentucky or Alabama or where, somewhere just in the middle of North Dakota, yeah, it's probably not going to trade hands for very much money, but somebody will buy that deal at some number. It might be $10, okay? It might be a bottle of water, a beer, right? You might be like, hey, I'll buy you a beer. You got to take this property off of my hands, okay? But a deal will always trade at some number. So understanding that really no matter what your exit strategy is, there's a number where it's a good deal and there's a number where it is a bad deal altogether. Now, I have seen different scenarios with like Airbnb, for example, okay? I'll just use this one as an example where, people think they can go in and pay retail for a property, right? They can pay what it's listed for on DMLS or even overpay for the property because they believe that their ROI, right, their cash on cash return is going to be significant enough to where they don't mind not getting a good deal on the property. So there's an argument that somebody could make in these like unique niches or different things, different parts of real estate where you're like, hey, Austin, I can like overpay for a deal because, we're going to make $100,000 a year on an Airbnb. Okay, look, again, as long as you understand the numbers, right? You really looked at the deal. You understand the comparable properties, how much it's going to cost to renovate it. You understand the financing you're going to get. You understand how much cash down you're going to have to put into the deal. Are you going to use your cash or are you going to use somebody else's cash, okay? And you've looked at the entire deal, then yeah, you can probably go ahead and move forward with that deal. But you really want to understand everything. And if I were you, I would recommend having multiple exit strategies, okay? A lot of people, they have one exit strategy, right? They're like, I'm gonna flip it, okay? I'm gonna buy this deal and I'm going to flip it. And the problem with that is what happens if that doesn't work, right? What happens if the market turns in the middle of your flip? What happens if you buy the deal and for some crazy reason, a bunch of supply hits the market out of the blue, you still have like another 90 days or 180 days left to renovate the property, and you're looking at the deal and you're like, I don't think we're gonna be able to sell it. Like, I don't think it's gonna sell. Like, what do we do? And maybe you have hard money, maybe you have private money where you have an interest-only short-term loan on the property, and those types of loans, right, that type of financing will eat you alive. So understanding and looking at a deal and analyzing a deal, right, knowing the numbers, understanding, hey, I've got to analyze the deal, I've got to look at, multiple potential exit strategies. If I got stuck in the deal, could I refinance the deal? Would it appraise, right? Would an appraiser from a bank, right, come and appraise the property at the value that I think it will be worth, okay? Would they appraise it at that number? What would it rent for? If I had to rent it to a long-term tenant, look at Rentometer, right? Look at Zillow. What would it rent for? Would you be able to cover the mortgage payment if you had or were forced to rent it out? Maybe it's in an area where you would Airbnb it, right? What would it Airbnb for? Have you looked at Airbnb and figured out what the nightly rate is in that particular area? Would you have to furnish it if you Airbnb'd it, right? Probably so. What would it cost you in fees to Airbnb it, right? The point I'm trying to get through your head is just to understand that when you look at a deal, I see a lot of people, they glance at a deal, they're like, it's a deal, right? Or it's not a deal. And you really want to slow down and take your time and really analyze the deal in full. There's definitely been deals over the years where I've personally moved way too quickly. I've looked at the deal too fast. I didn't fully think the deal through, and we've either broke even or lost money on the deal. Now, when you're doing a ton of deals, it's gonna happen from time to time. However, you can definitely avoid it. So if you're watching the video, I just encourage you to slow down, pencil it out, take out a piece of paper, take out a notebook, get on your whiteboard, and just look at every angle, look at the deal, fully understand the deal before you get involved, before you take a look at it. So there you have it. I kind of compiled a bunch into one, but that was really like my top 3 biggest real estate investing kind of mistakes or lessons that I've learned in my journey so far in real estate. Again, I'm nobody special, right? I'm a normal, average 26-year-old dude that is just going out there every day and doing the best I can in real estate investing and trying to make a name for myself and my team and my future family. So if you got value from the video, I would really appreciate it if you would just smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm, drop a comment in the comment section down below, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video.